Last week, we announced Automations, which opens up whole new possibilities for how you can use Resend within your application. Fire off custom events and then start automations that will send a drip campaign on a sequence or pause until a certain event has taken place. Today, let's look at a very quick view of how you might use this in your application. So the first example, we'll just keep real simple here. I'm going to create a new automation, and every automation begins with a trigger. Now, these triggers allow you to say, hey, when this event happens, then do whatever the automation happens to be. So I'm going to start with the trigger, and I'm going to have to add a custom event. So before we get going too far, let's jump back out here. You'll find these events in the automations pane as well. I've created a couple that we'll use in a second here, but let's create one called user.created, and then I'll simply click save. Now you can add custom data to this as well, which I'll show you in a moment. But for now, let's jump back into this automation, and here let's start with a trigger, and I'll choose a custom event, and this custom event will be user created. So whenever this happens, I want to do something. This little plus allows you to say, here's what I want to do based on whatever the event happens to be. So you'll see that I can wait, for instance, so I can delay. Let's just delay for 10 seconds. And you can use natural language here. We try to make this real easy. So that way you can do this all without having to think of custom syntax. All right, now when this happens, maybe I want to do something like add somebody to a segment or update their contact information or send them an email. And that's what I'll do. Now, you can choose from any template you already have within Resend, so maybe a welcome email would be a great one here, and I'm going to send it to them, and I want to make sure I send it to whatever the person's name is. Now, I'm going to send along with this new user whatever their contact information happens to be. So here I would send along their first name and shop URL. I already have this baked into the template, so I don't have to do this. It's optional. In fact, both of those are. All right, so I'm going to send it from here, and I'll send it to whatever the person happens to be. So all this is baked into the automation. To start with, when a user is created, I'll wait 10 seconds, and then I'll send them an email. So I can go ahead and start this, but the nice thing is I can also test this flow myself. So I'm going to click here and hit test event. And you'll see I need to send along something like my auth token and then this application JSON that includes the event name and then an email address that the event is connected to. Now, I can do this as a curl, but we also just updated our CLI. So why don't we use that instead? So I'm going to jump over to my CLI and I can just do resend events, and I already have it kind of pre-populated here, event user created, and I'll send along the email. So as soon as this happens, you'll see that it sends the event user created, and I should be able to come back over here and actually see the flow happen in real time. Now this observability panel shows this. So you can see it's running right now. It's waited 10 seconds, and then it should send this email, and it's just done that. So I can actually check it in my own email inbox. So right over here, you'll see it says, hey, Chris, and it passes all this along. I even passed along my custom first name. So that's a really easy example of how you might use this and even test it in your own application. Now, how does this actually look within an app? Well, for that, let's work on a little bit more complicated flow. So here you can see I've got this custom site called waybackstore.com. And when I check out, I'll have to provide an email, and then I can click proceed to checkout. Now, the way this is going to work is it's going to fire off a custom event behind the scenes saying, hey, this user started the checkout process. And then obviously we're kind of mimicking this. So then I'll complete the checkout as well. So we can send different events for both of those items. So the first thing I need to do is look at the events we've created within Resend. So back at my events here, let's look at the checkout started. First of all, you'll notice the event has a couple extra things. You can actually pass along data with the event. And here I'm typing it saying that there's going to be an ID, which is a string, a subtotal, which is a number, and an item count, which is a number. So I can do things based off of that. I can have another event like this checkout completed event, has a lot of the same things, but has a date included and also the product names in a string. So I've got all that kind of connected together, and then I can process this myself. So in the automation, let's create a new one, and we'll name this something. Let's just say like checkout flow. All right. So we're going to start by waiting for a particular trigger, and this one would be whenever the checkout started happens. So I can pick off all the items within that automation flow and say, based on this, do this or don't do this. So here, let's go ahead and add a condition. And we can say when something happens. So we've got ID, a subtotal, item count. So I could say like when the subtotal here is greater than something like, I don't know, $10. All right. When it's greater than 10, then I want to go ahead and do something here. So if that's true, maybe I'd send them a follow-up email. If it's false, I could just do nothing. So let's say this follow-up email, what I want to do is let's wait for a certain event to happen. So I'm going to wait for the event called checkout completed, and I could time out in a certain set of time. So like within a week, if they haven't completed it, send them this. Now let's keep it real short just for the example here. So we'll say within 10 seconds. If this hasn't happened, then we're going to do something. So here we're going to say if the event has been received, we just ignore it. If it hasn't and it's timed out already, then we might want to send them an email. So you can see I can get really complex with these very quickly. So we could send them something like this abandoned cart. Now, once again, I've got a couple of variables within this component that I can send along here. So I've got the subject line, I've got the sender here, I've got the first name, which I can pull from the user's first name if I want to. And so all this is set up. This is this one side of the flow. Obviously, I could do something over here for something else. So maybe I want to update their contact information or something like that. Here, what I might do is say if they already have done this, and let's say the event has been received, in other words, they did complete the checkout, then maybe I simply want to update their contact, and I can look at certain custom properties for a given contact. So like last purchased, and now I can update this to something else. So I can change this to the actual checkout date that I've gotten from them here from this checkout completed date. So you can string all these things together to interact with your data within Resend, to send emails, to send custom templates. Now, obviously, you can get more complex here and say, if it's not greater than 10, maybe you want to do something else, send them a separate email or update their contact information in other ways. But for now, we'll leave it here at the kind of the basic level. But I do need to go ahead and start this automation. So it looks like a condition is required for the branch. Greater than, I never added it. Okay, there we go. So now I can hit start, and it will actually create this automation and start watching for it. And I can see everything that happens again in this observability panel. Now, how does this actually look within the code? You'll see that we've got two different events. Just as an example here, we've got a send checkout event when they start the checkout. And you'll see that I'm just sending along resend.events send, and I can name the event based on whatever it is within Resend. Now, one of the things we did when we architected this is made sure that it was developer friendly or developer first. So although we've done a lot in the dashboard today, you can actually create not only events, but the entire automation flows, including all the connections between the events, including wait until an event happens, all that kind of stuff, just through an API call. So we've already created this event, so we don't have to do this programmatically. And I'm going to send along the email. And here's that payload that we identified. We've got an item count, subtotal. Those should both be numbers according to both my code here and also what I defined in Resend. And then I've also got a custom ID. Now, once they complete the checkout event, I'm going to fire this one. Now, this one will look for a lot of the same stuff, but here it's going to use the checkout.completed event. It'll pass along all these different items. Here we're going to stringify all the product names so we can pick off whether or not a certain product, for instance, happened to be part of that. So that could be another way we could update the flow in a moment if we want to. All right, so now we just need to see this actually happen in practice. So over here, I can now proceed to checkout, and this should go ahead and fire off that first custom event. Now I can check that. I have a look at my observability panel. Here it is. And it's walked through here and says, hey, is it greater than 10? And it's kind of worked through each of these. Let's see, is this the right one? Checkout flow. Yeah. So it's waiting for this checkout event completed. So that hasn't happened yet. It's now timed out. So it should have sent me this email. And if I check my email inbox, here it is. It sends me the custom email. All right, so let's change the automation and make that delay go a little longer, and we can send that second that ensures that the checkout actually completes. So for that, I'll move back to the editor, and then let's go ahead and update this. So if we come down this way, we had to wait for this timeout. Let's do something like 30 seconds so that we have a little longer to actually change this, and I'll publish this. So now it's the kind of the next version of this automation. So let's go back and actually now hit complete checkout, and this should now send that second item along. Now, once that happens, we should actually listen for that event, and all that should take place, and it should update the contact instead of sending a separate email. All right, now that happened so quickly, I couldn't even get there before it already updated. You can see we've already updated the contact property based on the user's own action. So now I know the last time they purchased from me. Now, the whole point of this data is it allows you to serve your customers in a way that's specific to them. It's customized to them. And these automation flows make it easy for either developers or marketers or others to interact with your data and set up these custom flows to treat your customers like they deserve, to give them custom experiences. Well, I hope this was inspirational in helping you understand how to set this up. Again, there's a lot more we could do with this, including jumping into the API, setting up custom events or whole automation flows, all programmatically. So let me know what you'd like us to cover, but I hope this initial view gives you a sense of what you can do and how powerful the entire automations flow is. Thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Happy automating.